Hey guys, welcome to Overbite Gaming, and today we have a very special video. We're going to be doing the first of a new series called Overbite at the Movies. Whether this continues past this point will depend on the reaction to this one, as it's a whole bunch of work. Interesting piece of channel trivia, this was originally going to be a movie channel, where Snare and I would review movies. Our first review was going to be the Olivia Gruner vehicle Savat, but obviously things changed. Speaking of things, brings us to today's subject, The Thing. This is one of my favourite movies, in my opinion, Carpenter's best. It also happens to be the movie that I know most about, as I researched it to create a test presentation for training software at work. Yeah, I know, they really should keep a better eye on me. There are a whole bunch of reviews on YouTube for this movie, so I'm not going to review it. It's great, and if you haven't seen it, go watch it now, as I will be spoiling the shit out of it. First, I'll take you through a quick setup of the movie, and then we'll delve in and see if we can work out the timeline and the unanswered questions. The movie opens with a dog fleeing from a Norwegian helicopter as the passenger fires at it with a rifle. It arrives at American Outpost 31, where through a combination of stupidity and the language barrier, both Norwegians die. The dog is eventually put with its fellows, where it promptly unzips its meat suit and attacks the other dogs. The lads deal with it using my favourite country band, Shotguns and Fire. They autopsy remains, and while checking it for diabetes, Blair discovers it can imitate other life forms on a cellular level, leaving the crew paranoid about who is human and who is the Thing. Okay, now we've set the scene, let's start unpacking the assimilation, deaths and paranoia. Our first victim is a contentious one. We see the dog thing enter a room and see a silhouette react in surprise and then cut to black. Given what happens later on, we can narrow the available victims down to Palmer and Norris, but can't even use the silhouette for confirmation, as this wasn't either of the actors. I believe it to be Palmer for a number of the reasons. It's in the script as Palmer. They tried shooting with David McLennan, Palmer's actor, but decided his silhouette was too distinct, and it fits my own personal theory for another assimilation later. So Palmer has been nommed. Next up is poor George Bennings, the only character to actually get an entire first name. This one is pretty straightforward. He's working in the storeroom that they're keeping the presumed deceased split-faced Thing from the Norwegian base with Windows. Windows goes to get keys from Gary, and when he returns, Bennings is auditioning for the live-action version of Hirotsuduji, the Thing being nice enough to pile his bloody clothes on a chair. I think it's Live With My Fiancé. Windows, having rounded up a posse, pursues Bennings' Thing outside, where it's revealed in all of its gammy-handed glory. McGreedy burns it with the sillip bang of monster removal, kerosene. This assimilation, while being uncontroversial, does provide us with two small details which will come in handy later. Blair, in the meantime, having realised the dire threat the Thing poses to them and the world at large, has blown a sparky. He destroys any means of escape, most of the computers, the radio, and kills the rest of the dogs. At this point, Blair is human, as his actions directly impede the Thing establishing its assimilation nation. However, his actions does result in him being confined to his own lovely chalet, full of all the tools necessary for any advanced engineering project. Having burned the Bennings Thing and other Thing remains, Doc Copper comes up with the idea for a blood serum test. This leads us to one of the most famous questions about the movie. Who got to the blood? Doc Copper, going to retrieve blood in order to perform his test, discovers that all of the packs in the fridge have been torn open and most of the blood is all over the floor and the rest presumably contaminated. Of course, we know there is only one active thing at this point, and that is Palmer. So the question becomes not who got to the blood, but how did they get to the blood? I personally feel this aspect is really overanalyzed, but let's play devil's advocate and pursue the usual logical deductions. The fridge is always locked, and Garry has the keys which he gives to Copper whenever he needs access, who returns them straight away. However, this is where one of those things from Bennings' assimilation comes in. Windows leaves Bennings alone to get the keys from Garry, and when he returned and sees Bennings' new predilection for hentai, he runs off, dropping the keys, as we can hear. So logically, Palmer must have found the keys, used them, and left them somewhere Garry could find them, as they are later back on Garry's belt. This requires some mental gymnastics, but isn't outside the realm of possibility. But of course, this misses the real question. Why would a shape-shifting alien require keys to access the fridge at all? Fridges have a malleable seal. The door could be locked, but the seal is still movable. The thing could merely insert a tendril under the seal, slash the bags, and be on its way in probably less time than accessing the blood traditionally would take. Next up is Fuchs. Being one of the more intelligent characters, he of course goes off by himself to do science? He does take the precaution of a flask of acid though, which, when the lights go off, he doesn't take with him. Seeing a shadow move in front of him, he pursues it outside with a flare. Starting to regret calling him intelligent. We'll come back to Fuchs, as while the rest of the team search for him, there is an interesting interlude with MacReady and BLAIR. MacReady has gone to the toolshed to ask BLAIR if he has seen Fuchs. We can see that BLAIR has fashioned himself a noose and is asking to be let back in. The way he's acting combined with the noose brings a sense of theatricality to him. The way he's talking is out of character, and the noose is shoulder height at best. This means no snapneck, just slow strangulation, in a position where it would be easy to regain your feet. You have to be the world's most determined man to kill yourself in this fashion. I think we can agree that BLAIR has been assimilated at this point, and his behaviour in the noose is a carefully staged act for them to feel unsettled and not want him to come back inside, as it's busy underneath the shack and happy with the seclusion. The group eventually find Fuchs, or at least what's left of him, identified by his melted glass, as they postulate that perhaps he tried to burn the thing, or burn himself before it could reach him. I would lean to the former, as human nature would call for the destruction of an attacker before the sacrifice of the self. Either way, he's gone dead, he boys. Now we have Norris. This is one I want to discuss at length, as there are a couple of prevailing theories out there, and I'm going to talk about both, let you know which one I subscribe to and why. We need to set the scene first. It begins with MacReady breaking back into the base, as he was stranded at his shack by NAULS, when he found some of his clothing ripped and hidden. There's a scuffle, during which Norris is knocked to the floor and appears to suffer a heart attack. He's moved to the infirmary, where Copper attempts to revive him by defibrillation. Then this happens.
Clear! Clear.
This kills Copper, presumably by blood loss, and he is later revealed to not have been infected. This is either due to the thing not being in contact long enough to infect him, or by Copper heroically ripping his own arms off. I'll leave that up to you, but Copper is dead. The thing bursts forth from Norris's body, but is swiftly dealt with by MacReady and a lot of flamethrower. While everybody is distracted by the carnival happening in Norris's torso, his head makes a break for it. Is eventually spotted and given the business. This finishes Norris, but how did he become infected? As stated previously, there are two schools of thought on this one. The first one we'll look at is the defective heart theory. This theory states that Norris had a pre-existing heart condition, and when assimilated by the Thing, an organism capable of replicating a person perfectly, that it also replicated the defect. When shot by MacReady, the Thing legitimately had a heart attack. There are facts that do point to this. Norris not wanting leadership due to the extra stress, a chest pain he had earlier, and the script also mentioned that he had a heart condition. This would mean that he would either have been the first assimilated or assimilated off-screen similarly to BLAIR. This, however, is not the theory I subscribe to. The second theory is that Norris had ingested a part of the thing in something that he ate. Fuchs does state this.
If a small particle of this thing is enough to take over an entire organism, then everyone should prepare their own meals, and I suggest we only eat out of cans.
In this theory, Norris is being assimilated slowly, a cell at a time, which, if you really think about it, is absolutely horrifying. You wouldn't be able to feel it. It could have totally replaced a number of your internal organs without you knowing, because as long as they're doing their job, it's all groovy. You're just basically waiting for the thing to switch you off and assume control. I think that this is what happened when Norris was knocked to the floor. The thing detected a threat and moved to protect itself. Norris checks out, alien nightmare fuel checks in. Let's also examine the presumed heart attack. Would it really make sense for the thing, an alien that can control itself on a cellular level? Could it have repaired the damage? Did it even need a heart? After all, the heart's job is to circulate blood, and we know that the blood in the thing isn't just blood.
Watching Norris in there gave me the idea that maybe every part of him was a whole. Every little piece was an individual animal with a built-in desire to protect its own life. You see, when a man bleeds, it's just tissue. But blood from one of you things won't obey when it's attacked.
Of course, without perfect understanding of how the thing works, we can't answer anything for sure, and there's clues which point to both theories. I just like the creepiness and Chekhov's gun nature of the second. Norris, assimilated. And dead. MacReady shoots him in the head when he tries to attack him with a scalpel. He'd swiped while the Norris extravaganza was going on. He later tested and confirmed as human. If I was Richard Mercer, I'd have been pissed. Going out in such a conventional way? Pfft. Having been the primary antagonist for most of the movie, Palmer is about to get rumbled. Matt comes up with the idea that each piece of the thing is a whole, having seen the Norris thing in action. He ties everyone down and draws blood from them, even the deceased Copper and Clark. Uses wires heated by the flamethrower to test them, hoping for a reaction. Copper and Clark samples do not react, nor does Windows, who is untied and given a flamethrower of his own. It's Palmer's turn, and we know this is going to go pear-shaped. Palmer's blood reacts to the hot wire and skedaddles. Palmer starts shivering and mutating in all sorts. MacReady tries to blast him, but his flamethrower malfunctions. Palmer tears himself free and does a pretty dope Lionel Richie impression. Mac yells at Windows to blast it. Moving in to do just that, Palmer drops in the ceiling and gives Windows more tongue than he knows what to do with, before an extended head nomming and flight across the room put him out of commission with a dose of thingitis. Mac burns Palmer thing with the flamethrower, who in a nod to the original crashes through the wall and is finished off with a stick of dynamite. Back inside, Windows is making some concerning gloopy noises in the corner. Before he's able to finish the re-evaluation of his hands, Mac tortures him. The rest of the group test as human, with Garry delivering possibly the best line of the movie.
I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, but when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch!
The survivors decide that the thing cannot be allowed to escape no matter the cost, and set about planting explosives about the base, during which they discover that not only has Blair escaped the tool shed, but has also been building an honest-to-goodness flying saucer to try and reach the general populace. Almost ready to blow the camp, they make the classic horror movie dumb move and split up to plant the last few charges. Garry, who has gone to plant his by the generator, gets a jump scare pie face from Blair, who actually inserts his fingers into Gary's face skin while forcing thing matter down his throat to rip, infect and tear. Pretty rough way to go. Afterward, we see Blair dragging off Gary's body, now fused to his arm. I'm going to mark Garry as dead, as even though he was surely infected, he never had the chance to operate as his own entity. I think his assimilation was just a quick way for the thing to receive additional biomass for the finale. This is one of the most disappointing elements of the movie. He hears Gary being dragged off and just kind of wanders towards it, never to be heard from again. The disappointing part is when you see the original storyboard for his assimilation. He was going to pop up before the BLAIR thing, looking cadaverous and melty, with small tentacles writhing out of his ribcage to beg MacReady for help before succumbing to a large tentacle working its way up through him. Kind of arousing, I mean gross, yes, gross. As he never gets the opportunity to be tentacle violated, we'll just mark him as dead, the same as we did for Gary. We're here, the big showdown between Mac and the Thing. Bursting through the floor, the BLAIR thing looks great, BLAIR now having morphed into a large worm-like creature with a huge maw on the side of his head and dogs erupting from his torso. Mac does a Shatner roll, gets a one-liner in and blows it up with a stick of dynamite that touches off the rest of the explosives.
Fuck you too!
When you say it like that, it almost seems anticlimactic. This is probably due to the fact that there was supposed to be a lot more to it. First the NORRIS assimilation, and there were stop-motion scenes with thing dogs bursting completely from the body and threatening Mac. But Carpenter felt he could detect the presence of stop-motion, so decided not to use them. In fairness, you definitely can. MacReady, having detoured to his shack for a bottle of whiskey, a blanket, and to set it on fire, settles down to freeze to death drunk. Childs appears behind him, saying that he thought he saw BLAIR outside, so pursued him and managed to get lost for the climax. He settles down across from MacReady and asks how they will survive. Mac says perhaps they shouldn't and offers the bottle to Childs. He takes it and drinks while Mac chuckles. While a short scene on the face of it is perhaps the most analysed scene in film history, other than that one in Basic Instinct. Know what I mean? What we're all trying to do is ascertain if one or both of them are infected. The most commonly held notion is that Charles is infected and Mac is human, so let's take a look at the various arguments. First off, I agree that Mac is most likely human. He's fresh off destroying BLAIR thing, which wouldn't make any sense if they were both infected. Charles is the big question mark, as his explanation of where he was is super shady. There are a number of theories that prove, in quotation marks, because you can't see the script, he's infected. This is one of the most often cited, that Mac's breath steams in the cold while Charles does not. This is a result of the lighting of the scene and has been disproved by adjusting the video reveal that Charles' breath is steaming, it's just hard to see. Even if the filmmakers intentionally made his breath hard to see in order to imply his infection, this theory simply doesn't hold up. Remember when I said the BENNINGS assimilation gave us two clues, one being the keys and this being the other. There, BENNINGS thing clearly steaming up the air with his howl. Case closed. Possibly the most ridiculous theory is that what Mac is holding isn't whiskey but a Molotov cocktail full of gasoline, and when Charles drinks it, MacReady laughs because the thing wouldn't know what whiskey tasted like. Outside of the fact that the thing is able to use the knowledge of the assimilated to perfectly replicate their behaviour, comparatively the taste of whiskey is small potatoes, we also see that before Mac knows Charles is there, Mac is about to take a drink himself. This theory goes that a thing's eyes are not reflective, so they don't glint. This is based on the scene where Palmer's blood is tested, where the filmmakers confirm that they lit it to remove the glints in Palmer's eyes. This does make the scene more unsettling, with Palmer's dead eyes being really effective on a subtle level. However, it's not consistent across the rest of the movie, with multiple things displaying eye glints, and Charles himself in this scene showing them as well. Charles appears to be wearing different coloured clothes than he was when we last saw him. There are many instances in the film where it's stated that the thing tears through your clothes when it takes you over, with the exception of BLAIR, which I think is just a filmmaking error. This proves Childs is infected. Well, no, I don't think he has actually changed clothes. They're just rhymed with frost, making them look a lighter colour. Remember back to this scene?
Back off. Way off.
MacReady's jacket is dark brown leather, but it looks white. This, to me at least, is the only one that holds any particular weight. Childs drinks from a bottle that MacReady gave him, despite knowing that if Mac were a thing, it could infect him. The lack of care showed is cited as Childs already being infected, so he doesn't need to worry about it, and MacReady laughs because he's outsmarted him. However, you could just as easily say that Childs and MacReady are waiting to die, and at that point, Childs would rather a belly full of hooch, even if it meant becoming infected, with something that could potentially kill him after he was already dead. The laugh from Mac being an understanding of the joint acceptance of their fate. There really isn't sufficient evidence in the movie to confirm Childs as being infected. All we can try to do is interpret what's there. Don't forget, Bill Lancaster, who wrote the script, is only human, and despite producing such an excellent piece of work, was not able to keep the narrative airtight. The same goes for John Carpenter, who regularly muddies the water with conflicting statements. We can get more of an idea if we refer to other media such as the video game and comic books, but I want to keep it contained to the movie. I don't think either of them are infected. The thought of these two survivors that have gone through hell, sat there willingly freezing to death because they're too paranoid to work together, is a wonderfully bleak and powerful ending. Besides, I'd be more worried where the fuck Palmer's blood has gotten to. Seriously, is no one worried about that? With that, we've come to the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. This has been a massive undertaking and I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment down below as to your theories about the movie. I'd love to see some lively debate going on. Also, let me know what you thought of the video. I know we usually do video game stuff around these parts, but if you want to see more movie analysis, let me know, as I don't want to put this amount of work in again if it gets outperformed by a shitty Let's Play. I just want to finish by shouting out a couple of other channels that have also done excellent The Thing videos, if you're not done with the topic yet. Movie Timelines did a brilliant 13 unanswered questions The Thing video, which inspired me to analyse it myself. Also the only guy I've ever seen that noticed Copra's pants. Roanoke Gaming. This guy's a legit scientist and did a marvellous job of analysing the biology of the Thing in his The Thing Supercell video. Collative Learning, a channel chock full of really intelligent and in-depth film analysis, and has done several videos on the Thing. All of these channels will be linked in the description. If even that isn't enough to scratch your Thing itch, then you can also watch the documentary The Thing Terror Takes Shape right here on YouTube. I saw this as a DVD extra and it's by far my favourite making of. Don't forget to do all the usual YouTube goodness down below, and I'll catch you next Saturday as things return to normal around here. Take it easy, guys.